Thanks for joining me. I'm Elizabeth Mulhane and I'm interviewing Henk Werner. Henk's located in China and I'm in Australia, and Henk is just here to give us his testimony for how mindfulness has impacted his life. So Henk, how would you say mindfulness has impacted you within your own person, just within your own individual self?
I think it really depends on the period of my life. It's a bit like, I don't know if I would qualify every part of my life as being mindful in the way how you would do it, but I've always been a person that thinks a lot about things, and I'm a feelings person. And as such, I would qualify myself basically during my lifetime as a mindful person. Like demonstrating in the streets of Amsterdam when I was like 8 years old that I want to have school on Saturday because I liked it. Again, I don't know if you would qualify that, but there has been a big part of my life that I felt very insecure about myself. And I think in that time, being at least thoughtful about yourself was kind of increasing that feeling, make it bigger, because you're thinking about the bad sides. You don't thinking about the potential good sides. You know for yourself that you're a good person and you're trying to be good, but you don't see the results in the way like you hope it. But once I kind of understood, once I started meditating or doing breath exercises and just focusing on health and all the positive things, like being thankful for all the positive things I've seen in my life, I think it has greatly reduced anxiety, stress. So I think it has a really positive impact on me.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that we all do have a different version of the way we practice, but it is basically that same reality of just being aware of where you are and what you're doing and your conscious state. And I'm the same as you. I like to think a lot as well. And that doesn't make us not mindful. It's just we are mindful that we're thinking. And a lot of deep meditations include contemplative thinking, and that's the way we kind of go really into ourselves and to know ourselves and to know our place in the world. I think that thinking and mindfulness, they really go hand in hand really well. And it's great to hear that you feel like you have been practicing for so long and you're seeing over time how that's making a difference. And so how do you think it's impacted your relationship with your family, just the family relationships and your relationships with people?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's like I'm now in my second marriage, and first marriage ended quite a long time ago already, I think 1998. But a couple of years before that, I started to learn neurolinguistic programming, which is basically high-level communication skills, in an effort to save my marriage. And that didn't work because, of course, I was part of the equation. Like there's a lot of subconscious processes going on there which control you, which you can potentially tackle if you have the help of a coach or a third person at least. But in a marriage that didn't work, so that still ended. But looking back at it later, I do realize that we've been able to stay friends and taking care of our daughters. Even we got a second daughter later after our divorce, which is another story for another interview. But I think that all comes down to being mindful and thoughtful about about your position in life, the relation you have with the people around you, even you're married or not. She's the mother of our daughter in that time. How that relates to the children, and yeah, being mindful about that has a huge impact on the quality of life, at least of your children. And if your children are happy, then you're happy. I mean, I wouldn't know anyone who would claim differently.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. And yeah, it's not very often that you produce another child after the divorce. But it does show that you're very open to communication. And yeah, I really hear you how you're saying that our mindfulness practice gives us a more compassionate self, and then that goes into all the relationships. We have more compassion for ourselves and more compassion for other people. And I have found that too with my own practice. It's just it's amazing how a mindfulness practice can help you be aware of all those moments where you can slip up and not choose that compassionate thought or way of being first. But then the mindfulness practice can just bring you back and help you to do a double take if needed. So we're continuously cultivating that right way of being and belonging and becoming. So yeah, that's a wonderful testimony. And so and you mentioned that you were your kids see you, and that's exactly right. I think that's the best we can be with our kids, is to be those role models. And that leads me into the next question, which was how have you been teaching? Like, do you teach mindfulness to the children other than being the role model? Do you actually actively teach them? And if so, what kind of ways do you find have been really working?
So I think I do. So my boys are almost 8 years old now, and grow up in China, are fluent in English, are reasonably okay, are fluent in Chinese and reasonably okay with English. And they sometimes struggle to find words. But they're twins, and as such, the sibling rivalry is quite intense. They're both two little greedy bastards, sometimes I call them. But they love each other a lot. They help each other a lot, but they're also very competitive. And in the past, they grew up with grandparents who were pretty loud. And even though I really didn't like the situation, I didn't have much of an influence, especially here in China. You respect the elderly. And I'm not always here, of course, especially in that time. So they grow in this situation that they can be very loud and emotional, and that happened to me as well. Like stress at work made me more have a short fuse and easy to get loud, and the kids pick that up and kind of copy you. And when they copy you, you're actually being pushed with your nose in the facts of your own behavior. And I think that's the moment when I started to actually be even more mindful about my own behavior and communicating with the boys about theirs. So whenever I see something happen, I would take probably one of them apart, and I would first think how I would communicate with them. I'd just not doing any specific exercises, but just have a very quiet, down-to-earth conversation about who they want to be, how they want to feel, and what kind of solutions they can think of to reach that feeling, and if what happened before is contributing to reach that or not. And then, of course, the answer is always not. And it's like, I don't want to so basically what I said, all I want to ask you is to think about this in today, and whenever you feel like it, just think about it and see if this really contributes to what you want to reach, who you try to be, how you want to feel. So this is at the moment the way how I would practice mindfulness with the kids.
Yeah, that's great. That's another great answer. And I can hear what you're saying about our kids can echo our behavior. I think also when we realize that yes, it's our behavior and we need to claim it, there's always that hereditary component to the way we are and the way we act. And if that includes being able to shoot up high with our emotions and then come down again, and whatever is going on in there, I think our mindfulness practice also helps us just completely accept that and know ourselves. I find the more I age, the more I see my mother, inside of me, or my father inside of me. How it's like those ancestors playing out through you. And I think we can also use that knowledge to be more compassionate and understanding, not with just ourselves, but our children as well, because they're playing out a certain sense of hereditary. Their little brains are just pre-wired to turn into those people, even though environment affects as well, but we are the people in their environment. And again, it's a huge genetic connection and networking that makes us who we are. Right. But I think what you're saying too with the mindfulness is you're just bringing them to their state of awareness, and then saying, and we can cultivate better ways of being, coming back to that compassionate basic state and that basic way of feeling good in your heart, and then moving forward from there. And yeah, I do that with my boy too, and that's my fifth child. He's a teenager now, and as a mindful parent, it's just so powerful if after the end of an altercation, whether it's with another sibling or with the child yourself, particularly when they become teenagers, they're trying to push their boundaries so much more, and there's so much more confrontation that's going to be a good natural process. And sometimes teenagers can get heated as well, and then that can make a parent heated at times too, because I think even though we practice mindfulness, when it comes to parenting, we can't help but be very attached with that outcome. And sometimes our children's behavior, we can get caught up in that moment and caught up in just not even really aware of what we're consciously processing, but on a more of an unconscious level, we've got that attachment to their behavior as a reflection on us. You must behave this way, you must do this kind of thing because you are a representation of me. Be perfect, therefore. Do you know what I mean? I think yes. That can get in between that moment, and it can cloud the view of that moment, so we can stop seeing and being just there with that child, and I think when we come back to our mindfulness practice, we can just be in that room and not worry about what the neighbors might think, or what a friend might think, or a grandparent or a sibling. We're just us and our children, and then always just being able to, like you said, bring them back to that state of having a beautiful heart and moving forward in the world from there, and just checking that state of consciousness. Right. So yeah, mindfulness is it is an amazing way to live life, and because it's a continuum. You're always growing. There's always a little spurt of enlightenment in your mind and in your relationship, and then you go along like that, and then there's another little burst of enlightenment or illumination, and it is a really wonderful way to continue to grow and cultivate throughout our life. So yeah, my last question was, how has mindfulness impacted you just in the workplace? Have you sort of really noticed a conscious difference when you're applying mindfulness, and how has it actually impacted your quality of work, or just you being at work in that work mind? So yeah, you might want to tell us what you actually do, Henk, so we know where you're coming from too.
I think there's two parts to this question. I think probably let's say the pre-COVID part and the current situation. So I started a makerspace in 2016 in Shenzhen. This is the south of China, near Hong Kong. And it became very popular in a short amount of time. So we received 16,000 people in 4 years' time until COVID. And I had a lot of fun there. And I was running around like a chicken without a head. We didn't make a lot of money. We started to make money in the last year, and the outlook was good. So what I remember is that the purpose for me of doing this is for adding value to people's life. Like we have so much experience in what we do, and there are people who are looking for that experience. And a makerspace is a social place where people help each other, where people refer to each other, and especially in a makerspace, there are tools where you can build your own product without having to invest in them, while there are people around who can tell you about it and everything more. At the same time, you have to deal with a Chinese landlord, Chinese government, or parties who don't understand what you do. So where I'm getting at is like you have this kind of almost you have this kind of drive to do. You're very passionate about doing the right thing. You're very driven to deliver the most high quality experience to everybody around you as you can. And when there are other forces in nature kind of pulling the chairs, the feet under your chairs away, because they totally don't understand what you're trying to do, and they're simply doing their work. They're not even doing anything bad as such. They're probably even following the rules, but it's just not supporting where you're trying to go. And if you're kind of like struggling to reach your goal, so you're always fighting to reach that goal, to come to a certain outcome in I mean, what you're trying to reach, helping people, and you're not always getting there. It's always a big struggle and a big fight. And then at the same time, like people are pulling feet under your chair away. That are moments that not being mindful has a very negative impact on actually reaching your own goal. Because by not being able to control your temper, you're kind of losing even more support, and they are even not less willing to keep the leftover feet under your chair. So yeah, not being mindful in a workplace is actually something that can kill you professionally. The second thing, what I wanted to say is, during COVID, I started to work from home. Like the borders got closed. When the borders are closed, nobody can come into China. So the makerspace is still there, but it's kind of defunct. And I worked from home, and I was trying to put a manufacturing training in the market. Eventually I failed to do that, even though I sold several high ticket seats into that training. I underestimated how much effort it took to do it the way how I envisioned it. Again, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Trying to do everything the right way doesn't work with that. So I got in a burnout in May 21, a little over a year ago. And I was walking around for 6 months with headaches, of which the last 2 months, like continuous headaches, like just all day headaches. And one certain moment I woke up, I actually felt good. I forgot that I was suffering headaches. I walked to the living room where my desk was. I sat down, and in the moment I sat down, it was bang, headache came back. And I came to this understanding that this is it. It's the way how I dysfunctional, trying to reach a certain goal. And at that moment, I changed a lot of things in my life. So I basically stopped my work for 95%. I went from 5 hours sleep to 10 hours sleep per day. I started to do Wim Hof method. So I took showers of 2 degrees Celsius, 4 degrees Celsius. Wim Hof also has breathing techniques, what goes with it. So I started to do the breathing, which was part of my mindfulness training, basically, because when you're breathing, you're sitting on your bed with closed eyes. It's an excellent moment it kind of happens automatically. And I started to do more bicycling, walking. So basically, I mean, I was really lucky. Like my wife supported me a lot during that period, and parents-in-law were still living here. So my boys were taken care of. I had the luxury of being able to take all that time to myself and kind of developing that self-love, being able to ignore everything in my life, what other people don't have the luxury to ignore, because you just have to get up, you have to get to work, you have to take care of the kids or anything. And that made a profound change in my life. That kind of changed the way how I think about most of the things what I do. And I can't say that I'm always taking enough sleep right now. We're in another project, but at least I much better listen to my body and to signals what I receive in general and act on them immediately, and immediately stand up and take time off, or immediately take a break, or even think about, is this really what I want to do? Is this really the way how I want to do things? So I think being mindful has a huge impact on a positive quality of my life.
Yeah, well, that was a really packed answer there. I felt like you really touched a lot of ways that we can bring mindfulness into our lives, and like you said to begin with, in Buddhism, it's part of the Eightfold Path, and it's that right intention to have that very first step of what we offer other people, what we offer the world through business or whoever we make our income, is having that right intention behind what we do. So we're doing a good service and providing that, and that is a part of the mindfulness path, to have that intention. And for some people, it just comes naturally, and to other people, they can cultivate that intention, and with that comes a lot better way of living and being and belonging to within ourselves and to each other and to the world. So yeah, having that right intention is just a wonderful way of being. And I noticed you also mentioned that controlling your emotions within the workforce, it is so powerful to be in control, and it can definitely help you navigate other people's moods and emotions, because in the business world, people can say no based on their mood, and it can certainly impact your whole day, your whole week, the general activity within your business. So mindfulness is a wonderful way to just help us keep those emotions in check. And I think that it's also really easy to connect with someone else's mood if we're not conscious of how we're being. It's, if someone else is angry, it can really make you angry quite easily. Or if they're really moody, it can easily trigger a moody response from ourselves if we're not really conscious of, that separation, of not getting entangled, not getting consciously entangled in another person's emotion, other than, having that more compassionate, understanding view of that person and our interaction, no matter what that interaction is, even if they're being offensive and rude. And it can really turn relations around and promote good business dealings for us, just applying mindfulness. So that is a really, really handy yeah, really handy way that mindfulness helps us within the business world. And like you said, it comes down to that breath work. And I've done that breath work with that, how do you say his name again? Holm.
Wim Hof. Wim Hof.
Wim Hof, yeah. He has a really, some very dramatic, intense breathing exercises there, but it's just, I think it's great to try all those different kinds of formal activities, because it's all just that bringing so many, you know, little neuron connections into the mind that say return to the breath. And when we're returning to the breath, we're making that breath our anchor, and we're living life like that. We're living life just in a more somatic way. And like you said, that can lead to having those check-ins and knowing if we've got headaches, knowing and being consciously connected with what we're feeling sensationally, whether it's a headache or an upset tummy or, you know, a pain somewhere. So rather than just unconsciously moving through our day, somehow aware of what's going on and not really connecting with it, just really habituated to the nagging little pains and aches and everything. But we are really conscious of it, and not only conscious, we're paying attention, we're giving it compassion, we're covering it with self-care. And I think that is what is a wonderful blessing that mindfulness gives, is it really does connect us and engage us with our own relationship in self-care. And when we do tune in, when we tune into, okay, I've got a headache, you know, and then we think, okay, well, I need more water, or I need this or that, or like you said, you know, you can, with your mindfulness practice and being consciously aware of who you are and what you're doing all the time, you get those deeper insights and you realize, okay, there's something connected with my work and my headache, or, you know, my work and my tummy ache. And there's a deeper connection that we can go into meditation with as well. I find we can get a lot of answers in meditation to healing our own problems and opening ourselves up to ourselves, taking the mask off within ourselves, really deeply knowing ourselves and getting connections and having answers. And that is a wonderful way to bring a somatic, a physical healing as well. Just kind of uncracking, opening doors and really seeing ourselves and accepting ourselves. Because sometimes, you know, I had a similar situation myself where I had a physical problem whenever I was related to a certain work activity. And I realized I just had to say to myself, I need to self-care. I need to step back from something else in my life that is being, you know, there's too many pulls on me. And like you said, it's not everyone that gets that blessing to be able to take a step back, but it is so important sometimes, and not to even wait till you get burnout, to even just see those signs and then step back, go into your core, back into the self, time for self-care, inner reflection, and then being able to step out into that distal space, into the world, and be able to strive without that strong sense of pushing, you know, having more of a synchronicity where things do start sliding into place. And I think, yeah, that's what mindfulness can give us as well. I think the more that we stay connected with the practice, the more we connect with that understanding of striving without the striving, the way that Lao Tzu sort of talks about, where things aren't quite so much of a struggle. So yeah, and that was an excellent testimony to mindfulness, Hank, and I'm really glad that you were able to give up your time and share that with our viewers. I'm just wondering, before we end the meeting, is there anything else you'd like to share before we go?
There were two things that came to my mind during your last reply. And I think one thing you mentioned, that when someone gets heated emotion on a workplace or anywhere else, and it's easy to fall in that trap of getting heated emotion yourself. It helped me a lot. This is something I had from NLP, that the reason why we get triggered is because somebody steps on our top value. I mean, we all live by our values, but there are values which are not that important, but there are certain values. If you keep asking what is even more important, you come to your top values. And when somebody steps on your top value, that is a moment when something subconsciously gets triggered and you can get very emotional. So understanding what your top values are, being aware of it, makes it more like a tool, manageable, because now you know which moments, what happens, if this happens, then I can get triggered. And you understand that it because somebody steps on your top value. And that is also a moment when you can realize that they might not do that intentionally. They might be communicating to you because of their own values, and accidentally there is some kind of a mismatch, and there's nothing wrong with that as such. They are responding in a way which is natural to them, and if you are aware that this is something what can happen, there is a trigger and it results in a certain emotion, then you become able to manage that. So whenever you see this happen, you might need to take a couple of seconds to let it sink in, but as soon as it is, you can kind of release that anger feeling and say, okay, why does this happen? Why, what did this person respond that makes me feel, and what does that mean? What are they trying to communicate to them? What are they trying to communicate to me? And then you can just actually like ask them or try to help them solve their issue, and which helps them calm down. They can help them get away of their heated moment, because you understand that there's also some top values at their side, which has been stepped upon somehow. Maybe not by you, maybe because of something else. So it's a form of being mindful, thoughtful in the workplace, which can have a really good impact on working with people. And I think I probably forgot the second thing, what I wanted to say.
Well, I think that's a really good point to make with that first one, is like the perception. That's right. It's under everything. We don't even hear what people really say, you know, in their terms. We hear it on our terms. And so often, I think we also have to realize that, you know, it's probably why first marriages often don't last, is this two people just don't click right sometimes, you know, and someone else will click. Even though we might be a better person and learn from our mistakes, there's still that original problem that the click's not good. And I think that in some relationships, and even in the business world particularly, we can constantly come across someone where, yeah, we're not perceiving each other the way we're meant to, because that click's really off. And that's right. If we can, you know, go down and see, is it a problem within our core beliefs, or is it that other thing? There's that sort of that energy. Sometimes you kind of can feel those people you're not going to click with, like very, very early on in the conversation. And we can bring our mindfulness into that and go, okay, you know, I'm probably not really hearing this person as open-minded as I could hear them, because my own core beliefs are chanting in the background. And I need to be aware of that and consciously be aware that I'm hearing them based on what I believe, and, you know, whether that is right or not. Sometimes we need to check our own core beliefs But whether it is right or not, we have to totally accept that other person, how they are, how they've presented themselves, and how they have come to us, without that need to, you know, change them or to disagree with them, just to actually let them be them. So yeah, and I think our mindfulness practice can certainly help us do that, help us just be present and accept that person as they are. Mm.
I think marriages are a very interesting thing. Like in my first marriage, when I met my wife in the first couple of weeks, I thought she was everything I ever wanted and wished for in a partner. And after, I mean, she was Russian. Within a year, I was in Russia for a month to be with her, and she came back to Holland with me. And right after she came to Holland, it quite quickly became clear that we basically fought every day. But I was so unbelievable, terribly in love that I was willing to ignore everything. And it's a very different situation than you are in many other situations. People say like yeah, your work relationship is kind of like a marriage, but I mean, usually you're not terribly in love. There's not like some forces who are kind of limiting you to leave. There you have a lot more ways to consciously think about what's happened. You're not driven by your hormones or anything else. But when I met my current wife, I knew much better what I really need in a partner. And I took a very long time of kind of testing her. And she did the same with me. She also came out of a not ideal relationship. And we have a good marriage. But the interesting thing here is that like we're together now for 10 years and people grow as a person, and people change and change for different reasons. Maybe not the core being stays the same, but environmental impacts change who you are and how you behave. And I think it's really the interesting challenge here is that if you really love each other and you've set your goal on staying together and make it work, that you start to become more mindful about what is actually going on, why are these struggles happening, and trying to find ways to solve it. And I don't think I find that in the same intensity anywhere else in life. I find that in marriage, especially marriage with children, most profound. All the other situations, it's much easier to walk away and say, well, you know, I don't care that much. Just go do what you want. I go do something else. But in a marriage, especially if you have kids and you really want to make it work, that's usually not an option. So you become more mindful and trying to find ways that work.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I had to put you on mute. My dog is starting to cry in the background, wanting to get into the room. I'll just let her in, so she's just.
Yeah, totally fine.
Oh, she's actually getting going. So, yeah, no.
Part of the family.
Sorry?
She's part of the family.
She is. But yeah, I can really hear what you're saying there with marriages. I think everyone has a different experience when they've gone through a divorce, and you know, even though it's a common experience to get married, and it's a common experience to have arguments, and these days it's becoming a common experience to have at least one divorce. But I think within all those common experiences, they are all unique situations that play out with different dynamics. And that's why some people can say, that it's like a business contract in a way that, you make that commitment, and your love kind of grows into something more family orientated than romantically inclined per se as you get older in that same relationships. And in those terms, it can be just, it's like a business, you're just agreeing to be partners and agreeing to move forward in all those ways. And I think when you can sort of see it like that, as well as it's not just a romantic contract, it's a friendship. It's a friendship that's going to go through all the ups and downs that a romantic relationship will go through, but it's the friendship that keeps you there, and keeps it going long term, as long as the problems aren't too difficult to deal with. And I think I'll just end us on this last little technique that I've been using for quite a number of years, is when I'm not sure, because there's romance in a relationship, and because the heart, it sort of battles with the mind sometimes, and can put us in choppy water when we think about our relationship. And it's up and down. Sometimes we think it's amazing and great, and other times we think, why'd I do this? And I think that all relationships kind of have that up and down. But when you can sort of say, yep, that's it, I'm in it for the long haul, we can just shift so much thinking and time-consuming garbage of contemplating just out of the way. You've got that partner, they're your life partner, all steam, ships ahoy. And you're not going back on that, not always stepping back on that, but you just locked and loaded. And I think that you can get to a much more powerful place within yourself when you really do consciously commit to, that's it, better or worse. And then looking within yourself, I will try to align a thought and the emotion and the intuition. So, that gut feeling and that emotion and that thought. And I'll try and find that internal compass. So, my heart loves my partner. Maybe I have a thought that I'm really annoyed with them. My gut intuition is not saying leave, it's saying, I'll get through this, stay. So are you really using those 3 points: mind, emotion, and intuition or gut feelings to help guide us through our life. And when we've got that alignment, the thoughts and the heart and the intuition are all aligned, that's where we move forward. And we can apply that to relationships as well, because the heart always, and the intuition, we know it's good to stay together in most situations. And if it's not, it's not. And then, the heart and the mind will line up with that as well. But in a lot of situations where it's just an argument, but your mind has, gone on a negative tangent, then the heart and the intuition can bring everything back into alignment. And that's how I use my mindfulness in relationships as well, to make those right decisions in life. So I think we both shared a really powerful testimony today for the impact mindfulness can have, and how it is. It's this beautiful relationship that we have with ourselves, to get to know ourselves, and it makes life an enjoyable journey. And so, I'd like to thank Henk Werner for joining us, and thank you for listening. And would you like to say goodbye to our audience today, Henk?
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you for listening, everyone, and bye for now.